Our parsha starts off with Hashem telling Avram Avinu, Lech lecha me'artzcha me'latcha me'beis avicha, go from your land to the land that I'm going to show you. There I'm going to make you into a great nation. I'm going to make your name great, etc., etc. The Ramban asks, usually the Torah would tell us something that the tzaddik did for which he is deserving all of this great reward. And here the Torah does not seem to be saying anything at all about Avraham Avinu before Hashem tells him, go from your land and I'm going to make you into a great nation. The Ramban explains that Avraham Avinu previously, as a result of his trying to publicize the name of Hashem, the people in Ur-Kasdim were doing terrible things to him. He was actually running away from Ur-Kasdim to head towards Eretz Yisrael. He had stopped off in Choron and he was delayed there for a while, and Hashem is now telling him, continue on your journey to Eretz Yisrael, continue your great work, and there, in fact, rather than all the disgrace that you had in the previous places, there your name will be great. However, the Rebbe says this still seems problematic. Why doesn't the Torah say at least something briefly about Avram before our psukim over here of Hashem telling him, Lech lecha me'artzecha? It should have said Avram was a tzaddik, oived elikim, he was serving Hashem. It doesn't say anything about Avram Avinu other than the fact that he was part of Terach's family. It says nothing unique about Avram Avinu. It just starts off, Hashem says to Avram, go from your land. Says the Rebbe, the explanation is, the beginning of Am Yisrael is of course with Avram Avinu. And it is particularly in our pasuk, this first message that Hashem is telling Avram Avinu, where we see the uniqueness of Am Yisrael. By all other nations, their connection to Hashem is all based on their knowledge, on their recognition of Hashem. And once they come to recognize Hashem, they're going to do certain things that Hashem wants them to do. By Am Yisrael, on the other hand, their main connection to Hashem as an entity of Am Yisrael, as Yidden, is not because of themselves, that they're elevating themselves to get closer to Hashem. Rather, it's the fact that Hashem chose them as his nation. In other words, it's coming from Hashem, and therefore the Yidden are in a totally different category. It's not like they're just another group, another category within creation, and just perhaps a little closer to Hashem. Rather, they're a completely different entity, completely. Because all other creations are always remaining in the Metzius, in the Geder, in the confines of being a Nivra, created being. Whereas the Yid in his very essence is a concept of godliness within the creation. Because it's Hashem that chose them rather than just them being a creation and trying to get closer to Hashem. In a similar way, says the Rebbe, there's a difference between mitzvahs that Yidden have and the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. The Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach are primarily things to be able to keep the world as an inhabited, decent place, to refine people, to make them a little bit more refined and better people that the world could run in a normal way. And these are mitzvahs that generally could be understood logically as well. Whereas by Yidden, the idea of a mitzvah is tzavsa v'chibur. A mitzvah is from the word of tzavsa, which means joining, connection to Hashem, because that's really what a mitzvah is all about. It's a connection with the Creator Himself. And therefore we understand that just like there's no erech, there's no comparison at all between the boider, between the Creator and the nivra and the created being. In a similar way, anything that a person is going to do is on its own completely insignificant to Hashem. So it's really on Hashem's terms of what's going to make him connected to Hashem, what's going to connect the person to Hashem. And therefore, a mitzvah is about what Hashem tells us to do, what Hashem chose to do. And then when we go ahead and we fulfill that, that's what connects us to Hashem. Says the Rebbe, this is what the Torah is emphasizing by the first Yid, by Avraham Avinu. That what's unique about him is not about all of his great qualities, the things that he did on his own for the first part of his life. Rather, it's Vayomer Hashem el Avram Lech Lecho. It's a command coming from Hashem. That's what makes Avram different. It's because Hashem is commanding him to do something and he's going ahead and doing it. The Rebbe says we all know that Torah is Miloshan Hira. Torah is supposed to be instructing us, teaching us, not only on the academic level, but rather supposed to be a Hira in our practical avodah to Hashem. Says the Rebbe, the same thing is true. It's true by us. This idea that number one, the essence of a Yid is the fact that Hashem chooses him and tells him what to do, and then he goes ahead and does it. This is really the basis of avodah for a Yid's connection to Hashem, is a very important lesson in every part of our avodah. And the Rebbe explains, sometimes a person may think that in order to be able to fulfill mitzvahs and be close to Hashem, he first has to learn about Yiddishkeit. He first has to learn about the halachos and the mitzvahs of the Torah. He has to learn about Hashem. And then he could start fulfilling the mitzvahs. In other words, a person could think that the only way how he could properly do a mitzvah is only if he has first the full understanding and the feelings, etc., etc. This could also extend when we're dealing with other Yidden. We meet a Yid that perhaps didn't have any connection to Yiddishkeit till now in an open way. Not only isn't he doing mitzvahs, but he knows nothing about Yiddishkeit other than the fact that he's Jewish. And we might think that first we need to prepare him for Yiddishkeit. We need to teach him things that will give him an understanding about Hashem, about Torah and mitzvahs, a feeling towards Torah and mitzvahs, and eventually he'll get to do the mitzvahs properly as well. And even if we get him to do the mitzvah right away, because we understand that there needs to be nasa before nishma, of course we have to do the first thing even before we understand, but we still might feel that he's not really doing the mitzvahs properly until he has the full recognition, understanding, and connection to Hashem. And this is the Hayrod that's being said to Avraham Avinu. By Yomer Hashem el Avraham, Lech Lecho means we're not speaking only, we don't even know anything about the qualities of Avraham Avinu. We know nothing about Avraham Avinu. All that we know is Hashem is giving him a command and he's fulfilling it. And that's the same idea in our Avodah, that a Yid connects to Hashem just by listening, by obeying to the command of Hashem. In other words, the whole basis, the foundation of Avodah of a Yid is emunah and simple Kabbalah soil to do what Hashem wants. The Rebbe says, this is also true in our personal lives in the sense that sometimes you can have a situation where a person is keeping all of Torah and mitzvahs. He learns a lot. He knows nigla. He learns Pnimiyas HaTorah, etc. He even has Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, love and fear of Hashem. So, but he still has to know that when it comes to doing a mitzvah, the most important thing, the first and foremost thing to recognize about a mitzvah is the idea that I'm doing it because Hashem said so. Hashem made us holy and gave us this mitzvah to do. And if Hashem would command us to chop wood, we would do it with the same Mesiras Nefesh. Because at the end of the day, everything else, all of our other qualities, that's part of our own qualities. But when we do the mitzvah because Hashem said so, this is the way we're really connecting with Hashem himself. Says the Rebbe, now that we understand that this is the point of the message of the Hashem is of the first message to Avraham Avinu is to do what Hashem is telling him, and that's really what Am Yisrael is all about. We'll now also understand the connection to the specific order that Hashem told him, Lech Lecho me'artzcho me'latcho me'beis avicha, which is all connected to this idea. Chassidus explains that what does it mean to go me'artzcho me'latcho me'beis avicha? Artzcho is from the word rotzon. Hashem is telling him, go away from all your personal desires. Me'latcho is a reference to the midas, a person's character, traits, and feelings. Leave your own personal feelings and habits. Me'beis avicha, according to Chassidus, Av represents wisdom, chachma. Go away from your personal intellect. In other words, even if they might be involved in good things and holy things, but the first attitude towards a Yid, in a Yid's relationship to Hashem is, go away from your own personal agenda and you have to connect to Hashem on Hashem's terms. Says the Rebbe, now we can also go back to understand what the Ramban was asking. Why is he getting all this reward, Avraham, for fulfilling the mitzvah of Hashem? But this is exactly the point. The point is, when we are doing things just purely for Hashem himself, then that's the ultimate reward also coming from Hashem himself. And the Rebbe says we could see this in the reward, in the brachas themselves. That in the brachas, it keeps on being emphasized that it's coming from Hashem himself. I'm going to make you into a great nation. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you a great name. And furthermore, there's an emphasis on the idea, I'm going to give you a great name. And I'm going to make you into a big nation, because this idea is bringing a Yid up to real godless, to real greatness, which is bligvul, which again is only within the realm of Hashem. When a Yid connects to the Eibishter in this way, that he's focused purely on what Hashem wants, then he also gets from Hashem in the most unlimited way. The Rebbe says the same thing we see in the other expressions of the bracha, which bring out the idea how Avraham is one with Hashem. The pasuk says, Hashem says to him, Ve'ayei bracha, till now brachas were in my hand. Now you could bench whoever you want. This is a special closeness that Hashem has now with Avraham Avinu. In a similar way, the pasuk says, whoever is going to bless you will be blessed, whoever will curse you will be cursed. In other words, it's an automatic thing. You're connected with Avraham Avinu, you're connected with Hashem. And the Rebbe says, by us acting in this way, we'll have the true Lech Lecho to go el haaretz asher areka. With the coming of Mashiach, we're going to have not only the land of the 7 nations, but all 10 lands that Hashem promised Avraham Avinu.